Hello, everyone. China has two well-known old sayings. One is once the bow is drawn, there is no turning back, and the other is hesitation in making a decision leads to chaos. Zhang Yoxia has long been regarded as the man with the bow in the prophecy of the Tue Bei Tu, earning him the nickname Zhang with the bow in political circles. But why, despite this, have he and the elders not yet released the arrow, stubbornly insisting on keeping the tablet of Xi Jinping thought on the table? I have once again received exclusive information from an insider within the system, revealing in detail many behind-the-scenes reasons why the anti-Xi faction has been wavering, wanting to both strike the rat and preserve the vase. Surprisingly, Trump turns out to be a significant factor in this. With one day left until the fourth plenary session concludes, will Xi Jinping's lid be lifted? Wang Qishan and Zhu Rongji have engaged in high-profile political appearances at this sensitive moment, while Beijing's universities have received highly unusual internal directives. What do these extraordinary phenomena indicate? Today is October 22nd, Eastern Time, with historic changes looming on the horizon. Be sure to subscribe as we use logic and common sense to uncover the truth behind the news. Without further ado, let me first share the exclusive information I've received, which delves deeply into why the anti-Xi faction has been dragging its feet and hesitating to deal with Xi Jinping. Due to the sensitive nature of the information, to protect the safety of those involved, I will not fully quote the source verbatim. However, rest assured, I will not alter or distort any key information or the original intent. After sharing, I'll provide my own views and analysis. First, whether it's Zhang with the bow or the elders, despite their opposition to Xi, they have been steeped in the Communist Party system for years, constrained by ideological limitations and concerns. Their greatest current constraint is their desire to prevent the public from perceiving that Zhongnanhai has already undergone earth-shaking changes. They fear instability and worry that even the smallest details could lead to uncontrollable consequences, significantly impacting the entire political landscape. The root cause of this lies in their determination to preserve the party. Under this fundamental premise, the anti-Xi faction is cautious and treads carefully, as most of them come from a technocratic background. A defining characteristic of this faction, marked by excessive caution and a lack of decisiveness. No one wants to bear the seemingly unknown consequences or shoulder the historical responsibility or even face unforeseen disasters in their lifetime. Thus, their greatest consensus has been to adopt a strategy of fighting without breaking, waiting for Xi Jinping to voluntarily exit the historical stage. This fear of moving forward or backward has led to their back-and-forth, secretive maneuvering, to the point that even my source side, sometimes feeling that this world is truly a colossal makeshift operation. Second, no one in the anti-Xi faction seems to dare emulate Chiang Ching-kuo, boldly calling for reform and change. They are all overly cautious, fearing becoming historical sinners, unaware that by taking such action, they could become historical heroes, while preserving the party is what defies the will of heaven and makes them true sinners in history. What my source refers to as taking such action is not explicitly stated, but my personal interpretation is that it likely means decisively abandoning the Communist Party system, fundamentally reforming, and not missing this once-in-a-millennium historical opportunity. Because of this, even though the anti-Xi faction has restricted Xi Jinping's freedom of movement, they dare not push too hard, striving to conceal their actions and avoid expanding their scope. The bombshell of the 9 generals case dropped just before the fourth plenary session was a last resort, driven by fears of failing to manage unexpected chaos during the meeting. They knew that in a normal meeting, the anti-Xi faction would struggle to control all the Central Committee members. Even with this bombshell, the anti-Xi faction tried to ensure only insiders could decipher the signal to control the meeting, while avoiding letting outsiders see through their plans. In short, their indecision and fear of collateral damage have prevented them from taking decisive, iron-fisted measures to swiftly resolve the issue. Third, Another factor the anti-Xi faction deeply fears is President Trump's repeated, seemingly casual remarks about meeting Xi Jinping at the APEC summit, frequently referring to Xi as "my friend." This has left them confused about Trump's true stance, as the intelligence they've received from the U.S. is contradictory, making it difficult to judge. For this reason, the anti-Xi faction has been contemplating whether to leave Xi Jinping with the title of state chairman to facilitate a transition period internationally. They worry that overly aggressive actions could have significant international repercussions, potentially shaking the regime's foundation. At this point, my source expressed frustration, noting that Trump doesn't actually have any complex intentions. Trump simply deals with whoever is in power. For example, Japan originally planned for Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba to meet Trump at the APEC summit. But now that Ishiba is out and Sanai Takaichi is in, Trump will meet with Takaichi without any issue. To any normal person, this wouldn't be a concern, yet the anti-Xi faction is anxious and worried about such trivial matters, leaving many in their circle frustrated on their behalf. Fourth, my source revealed that many high-level insiders are reading Hong Kong's Epoch Times and New Era Weekly, seeking ideas and solutions. Because of this, Xi Jinping's National Security Commission has been scheming to shut down Hong Kong's Epoch Times and New Era Weekly in recent years. The source noted that the anti-Xi faction's primary concern is so-called procedural legitimacy. However, the current procedures no longer align with that supposed legitimacy. The announcement of the 9 generals case bypassed discussions by the Central Committee and Politburo, with the Ministry of Defense preemptively releasing it, which itself violates procedure. Clinging to procedural legitimacy is merely self-deception. Finally, the source emphasized that if Zhang Youxia doesn't act to take down Xi's key loyalists, it was originally planned to take down Zhang himself at the 3rd plenary session. Fortunately, the military's power, morale, and propaganda machine are now in the hands of the anti-Xi faction. As long as no major chaos occurs, things should proceed smoothly, as most Central Committee members tend to follow the prevailing wind and aren't much of a concern. Regarding the widely discussed Li Keqiang incident, the source mentioned that if overseas speculation about Xi stepping down and Li taking over hadn't provoked Xi's paranoia, leading to Li's death, Li Keqiang might be in charge today. The above is the information provided by my high-level insider source, offering a fairly complete disclosure of the anti-Xi elders and military's internal deliberations on handling the post-Xi era. As for its credibility, I'll say as always, judge for yourselves and take what resonates. I maintain an observer's perspective, treating this as a reference for understanding the situation. While the source's channel is reliable, the information itself may be limited by rank, scope, or timeliness, so we must view it calmly and rationally. Regardless, this at least gives us some clues to navigate the current contradictory and chaotic situation. In my view, this revelation aligns with what I've consistently discussed with you all. To preserve the party and avoid damaging the vase, the anti-Xi faction has tied its own hands, inadvertently giving Xi Jinping significant leverage. This has allowed Xi to repeatedly threaten to smash the vase, forcing the anti-Xi faction to make concessions. This explains why they continue to maintain the facade of Xi's core leadership, while Xi's camp feeds overseas narratives claiming Xi holds absolute power, that all purges are personally directed by him, and that he will retain his position until the 21st Party Congress. The logic here is very clear. Of course, when this information was released, news of a collective petition by military Central Committee representatives to remove Xi Jinping had not yet surfaced overseas. I suspect my source wasn't aware of such developments, which is why they kept lamenting the anti-Xi faction's hesitation and lack of decisiveness. I'll repeat, the rumor of Xi's removal may be true or false, but reflects a broad consensus. In extraordinary times, extraordinary actions are necessary. Clinging to outdated rules and missing the opportunity could lead to catastrophic consequences if Xi stages a comeback. Heads will roll, lives will be lost, and China will be dragged into a Taiwan Strait war, plunging the nation into boundless darkness. From another perspective, the anti-Xi faction's two major fears are, in fact, non-existent. We all know a simple truth. The tide of history is unstoppable. Those who follow it prosper. Those who resist it perish. As the snake from beginning to end, and the last leader of the Red Dynasty, Xi Jinping's fate signals the heavens' will for the Communist Party's demise. The dumbest thing Xi has done in the past decade is this. When the party took away the donkey, he gleefully went to pull up the stump. This is the root cause of his squandering a winning hand. In plain terms, this is a lesson for all to see. Whoever preserves the party will face the same fate, bearing the weight of the party's century-long heinous crimes. I have one question, whether it's Hu Jintao, Wen Jiabao, or Zhang Youxia. Are you willing to pull up the stump for Xi Jinping again, to take the blame and hold the bag for this mess? Many things seem daunting at first, but as you walk the path, the clouds part and clarity emerges. Other paths may seem safe and steady, but they're littered with landmines and traps. That's how Xi Jinping was ruined. From another angle, Zhang Youxia was originally set to be taken down by Xi at the third plenary session. But by a stroke of fate, at this critical moment, she suffered a stroke and collapsed, giving Zhang and the elders a truly once-in-a-millennium opportunity to stabilize the situation. For Zhang, hanging by a thread doesn't even begin to describe it. Calling it a miraculous escape from death is no exaggeration. Is this mere coincidence? Is Zhang Youxia's name aligning with the Tue Bei Tu prophecy also a coincidence? This is the will of heaven. Zhang with the Bao's destiny and the elders' mandate to restore order. Decisively taking down Xi Jinping and ending this red calamity threatening China is a clear, righteous act that aligns with heaven's will and the people's hearts. Who cares about the party's outdated, corrupt rules or so-called legitimate procedures? This is about setting things right and saving China from imminent chaos and collapse. Look at the comments below our program. Countless Chinese at home and abroad overwhelmingly support Zhang Youxia and the anti-Xi faction in swiftly ending Xi's Red Dynasty, allowing the Chinese people to embark on a path of normal integration into the international community, living with dignity, civility, and peace. Let me share a true story. I once spoke with a friend who suffered greatly under the Communist Party's oppression. When we talked about Xi Jinping's potential downfall, he stared at me unblinkingly and said, with unwavering conviction, something you'd never imagine, "If he really falls, I'd willingly break my own arm to celebrate." Honestly, his look and tone were no joke. I still don't fully understand why he said something so resolute. Perhaps it was an extreme expression of overwhelming joy. My point is, we must recognize the current historical opportunity. For the anti-Xi faction, it may seem like a power struggle, but it's backed by immense public support. I've seen comments below our program saying, if she's taken down, I'll buy 200 pounds of firecrackers and set them off all day. In short, acting in accordance with heavens will not only safeguard the interests of those in power, but is also the most effective redemption for themselves and their descendants. Now, let's move on to the sensitive information surrounding the fourth plenary session. Yesterday, October 21st, Tsinghua University's School of Economics and Management's official website announced that its advisory board's 2025 meeting was held last Friday, October 17th, with 23 members attending. The advisory board is chaired by Apple CEO Tim Cook. The report stated that former Chinese vice president and honorary chairman of the Tsinghua SEM Advisory Board, Wang Qishan, hosted a banquet for representatives of the advisory board. Former premier and founding honorary chairman of the Tsinghua SEM Advisory Board, Zhu Rongji, entrusted Tsinghua's president to convey greetings to the board members. This news is very intriguing, with 3 key points. 1. The Tsinghua SEM meeting was held on October 17th, but the announcement was delayed until yesterday, the second day of the fourth plenary session, suggesting deliberate timing. 2. Wang Qishan made an appearance and hosted the banquet at Beijing's Doutai State Guest House. 3. Zhu Rongji conveyed greetings through Tsinghua's president. Tsinghua SEM is well known as the stronghold of Zhu Rongji and Wang Qishan's financial faction. After Xi Jinping's constitutional amendment to cement his authority, both Zhu and Wang became iconic figures of the anti-Xi faction. Their simultaneous public appearances, deliberately announced after the fourth plenary session began, undoubtedly send a signal. Don't think we're irrelevant. We're watching. This is clearly a show of support for the anti-Xi faction at the plenary session. Another major piece of news comes from the Epoch Times, reporting that in addition to military presence in Beijing, tightened internet controls, and heightened oversight of officials and civilians, Beijing's key universities received notices requiring dedicated staff to be on duty from October 20th to 29th, including weekends. The unusual aspect of this notice is that the university's alert period extends nearly a week after the plenary session, which is highly rare in the history of CCP plenary sessions over the past 2 decades. Why such a long period? The primary reason likely relates to the National People's Congress and Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference holding standing committee meetings immediately after the plenary, indicating significant personnel changes are expected. To prevent power and personnel changes within the party from causing major public unrest, especially since universities are always a focus of stability maintenance, strict monitoring of student reactions is necessary. This notice indirectly confirms that the fourth plenary session may produce major events with a high likelihood of triggering strong public reactions. Tomorrow marks the end of the fourth plenary session. Perhaps something major will happen, or perhaps, as the saying goes, the nephew lights the lantern, and all remains as usual. As we shared today, the anti-Xi faction has been wavering, hoping Xi would gracefully step down on his own. But Xi, with his cultural revolution-era red guard mentality, makes expecting a civilized, elegant exit utterly unrealistic. So, whether the east wind prevails over the west or vice versa, we cannot confirm now. But I'm certain of one thing. If Xi Jinping retains his power and position at the fourth plenary session, there will be only one outcome: brace for a storm of blood and chaos.